And I am the former CEO of the Barefoot College International and now a board director and the founder of a company called Step Up, which works on systems change design in the social innovation space, and particularly in working with social entrepreneurs to help them use design to architect partnerships that lead to really strong outcomes and a changed system. And I suppose I feel strongly that we are living in a really strange world at the moment, the middle of a transformation, and that our perceptions of equality are really broken. One size fits all in education is not going to work any longer, and we have to be able to accept a certain amount of complexity, and indeed to look at how that can offer opportunities for growth and opportunities for convergence between all of these disciplines that we all know are essential to developing human beings that have strong empathy, strong innovation, and strong critical thinking skills, because that's really what our children need now. They need to be able to learn at Mach speed. And our adults living in adversity, who are in the developing world most particularly, need that same skill. And I think we too often forget that 40% of our population lives in a very, very different situation than we do. And so I thought probably it's easiest for me to show you what I've been working on, which is pretty incredible. So we have, I'm just trying to share my screen here for a moment. There we go. So we've been doing something really unique. We have been looking at ways to transform education and our ideas of education by choosing the least likely person to possibly do the most extraordinary thing. These are illiterate and semi-literate women from all over the developing world learning to become solar engineers. And that's not a light skill. That's 196 pieces built on a circuit board, and they're able to do it in 45 minutes. Why? Because this is unfortunately what most of them see at home every day. Their children learning to learn with really poor quality light. And so we looked at how do we design a solution for that problem and for the problem of economic, enabling economic activity in the poorest communities. So clean light was the first way that started, and really looking at how women who were the least likely carriers of that could possibly bring this incredible resource to their communities, but without ever having had a formal education. And that fast-tracked us to starting to use technology to integrate with exactly those same illiterate and semi-literate users. And it turns out that women in these situations learn together. They share technology. They understand that it gives them power. It's this incredible democratic way of empowering another human being in ways that we all take for granted. We've moved that further. We started looking at how we could use household budgeting and critical thinking skills, micro-entrepreneurial skills, and again, to extend those downwards to children. By this convergence of using very, very beautiful technology in really extraordinarily poorly resourced communities, not as a way to just transfer knowledge, but as a way to catalyze discovery, really to engage with pieces of technology in creative ways that give a creative outlook, that create inquisitiveness and discovery and wonder. And I think this is very much a different approach, a little bit of a disruptive approach than we have previously looked at. And so our journey at Barefoot has been largely one of just trying to continually learn, unlearn, relearn, rediscover the possibilities from our learners, and really take a very unconventional approach to defining education in today's setting. I think we've moved from a time of the idea that learning was one person to many, and then we moved into a time of many people teaching many, or many people learning from many. And now what we really need to construct and design for is a world in which anybody can learn from anyone. And that means a really different way of thinking about scale and thinking about knowledge transfer. A wise man once said to me, you know what the definition of an expert is, an ordinary man from another town. And I think this exclusionary mindset about knowledge is something that has really caused us to be in the situation we are today with the lack of participation possible from 40% of the planet's population. We've rarefied education to such a point where even poor people who live in rural settings don't think they deserve that education. I've heard that from women. This is heartbreaking, right? So somehow we have to begin to think about education beyond ourselves, beyond the world we live in, and in a much broader sense. And I actually think that that demands of all of us things like empathy, things like creativity of thought, critical thinking, to be transformed by visual things and to be in touch with the natural world. These are all transdisciplinary kinds of sensitivities, and they have to become the cornerstones of our educational approaches, not the nice to haves as the add-ons. Like, we can't still be having this conversation 10 years from now, because the human beings who we are producing, who need to design and deal with the world that is in front of us right now, are people that must have radical empathy, must be comfortable with proximity of human beings and of nature. And unless we start to imbibe those things in every act of knowledge transfer and in every thought process of how we design our systems of education, we are going to be left without the leadership in 10 years that we need. And I'm really concerned about that. And concerned that we are not putting our money, our resources, and our focus on raising up each of those other pillars to the level and the seriousness that they need to be to develop human beings able to cope in a complex and continually changing and adaptive situation.